Readers of Goff Rugby Report will already know about UCLA's changes with a new head coach in Dave Clancy and a ramped-up support from the alumni group. And now we've seen two high-profile assistant coaches come in with former England and British and Irish Lions prop Alex Corbisiero, who now works for NBC as an analyst in their rugby coverage, coming in as a forwards coach. And also with former Scotland 7s and 15s player Adam Ashe, now playing professionally for the LA Giltinis, coming in to help on attack and defense. Well, we decided to sit down with the entire coaching staff to talk a little bit about what brought Corbisiero and Ashe to the UCLA program, and also what's next for a team that, well, there are some big dreams and big plans for them and where they're going.
Adam, I figured I'd start with you. You've got some experience also in the Sevens World Series, so I was wondering if there's like a specific Sevens component to what you're doing with UCLA, and if that's part of what you're doing.
In a long time since I've been involved in Sevens, I think that from what I'm hearing, Stephen Hoyles, who's the forward coach here at the Giltinis, he's been involved in the Aussie Sevens program over the last year or two. I was listening to him speaking to some of the players about some of the different drills and some of the different strategies and whatnot that have been implemented to, obviously, to train and to work on developing Sevens players. And it seemed like a foreign language compared to what it was like when I played back in 2012. So probably not, to be honest with you, but I'm willing to lend a hand wherever I need to. So yeah, who knows?
Attracted you to the UCLA opportunity?
But when I was back in Glasgow for the last 4 years, sort of outside playing professional rugby, I've been quite keen to sort of develop as a coach. I was keen to get my coaching badges done from quite an early age in rugby. Managed to complete the level 3 qualification just last year at Glasgow there. So been at a few different teams in Glasgow and really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being part of the team environment and sort of seeing people develop, and it's something that I find quite rewarding. So I was keen to continue that and not to kind of let that fall by the wayside, obviously, when coming out here. So the opportunity at UCLA popped up and I was just like, that's perfect. Grab it with both hands and I can't wait to get stuck in.
Sort of a classic thing, right, with the game where people travel all over the world and they might do some coaching in Romania, or they might, on the west coast of the United States, and then suddenly you have a little bit to your resume, and as time goes on, you coach and play somewhere else. Who knows? But it's good. It's good kickoff point, I think. Alex, what was the feeling there? Were you looking for coaching? I mean, you're doing all these different things. Were you looking to coach, or did it just sort of?
A little bit of both. For me, coaching has always been a passion point, and mentoring is probably where my biggest, touch point of coaching is like, and it all comes down to a lot of the front rowers. I get as soon as I stopped playing in 2015, 2016, I went straight in and was the front row coach for the England under 18s and 20s because I just have a passion for mentoring and seeing players get better. And I think then the other side of me is being over here based in America, working for NBC, being really entrenched and behind the growth of the sport in America. I feel like I also owe it to the sport here to keep continuing giving my knowledge, because set piece and the scrum is one of my point of difference for the sport, I think, on the world stage, and the ability to be able to, to give that back, to get high school players with good detail, college players, and actually sort of help that diffuse across the United States really does appeal to me, because I think it's a key factor that needs to be factored in with their competitiveness on the world stage, long-term growth. And I feel, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't try and spread that, but I also get a lot of reward out of it and seeing players improve and missing the camaraderie of a training environment as being a professional since 17 for 10 years. Most of my adult life, is in these environments, and I miss it now that I'm retired and not in it. So being able to get close and up and close and continue furthering my knowledge too as well, and learning what players are doing in the current aspect of this game, probably all packaged into why I took the UCLA role and why I'm so passionate about it.
Excellent. The front row thing is a huge thing, because it seems to me it's changing all the time. So the more recent your coach is in terms of his or her experience in the front row, I think the more valuable that is.
Absolutely. The scrum sort of re-evolves itself every 2 or sort of 3 seasons, and especially at the top level of the game. And even in, rugby centric countries, there's quite a lack of that trickling down from the top to the bottom. But then I think America probably exemplifies that even more. And I'm quite fortunate, although I'm not, coaching or playing at maybe the top environment anymore. I watch so much rugby with NBC in my roles that I have that, the ability, my eyes are on the top level and what they're doing, that I feel that it's kept me quite current and schooled up to. And I seem to be one of the only pundits that likes breaking down the nuances and the intricacies of what keeps changing year on year with some of these top teams. So, I feel like very fortunate to be able to give that back. And I'm grateful to be able to, say I'm living in America and, being able to be involved in the sport here and making a living from it. It's, a dream come true for me, really.
So I think perhaps the difference between you and Adam is that you knew more about the rugby environment around Los Angeles and what UCLA was all about than maybe Adam did, and so sort of a little different. You're there. You're, as you said, you're entrenched in the area.
Exactly. I've been over here in the States, for the last 5, this is my 5th season with NBC, 5th year here. I've coached at a few other universities. Well, I've coached at a few MLR teams, more in like helping out roles or volunteer roles a lot of the time. And I just feel very lucky. I'm very aware of where the sport is here. I'm very aware of the key areas that, we need to keep funneling in, the top information and the right coaching and the right ideas to help with our players in their sort of growth and development. And I'm also very aware of, how big an impact someone like Adam can have at a program like UCLA, just my area of the front row nuances, but having someone who's playing at the top level, club level in Europe, who's represented international honors, to give some of that, his insights to these players will be invaluable for their growth. And it's also the diffusion. I think, he might touch 10, 15 players at UCLA, but what excites me is what they might do and what that might carry on passing on. And that's what I try and carry with some of the work I do as well. And so, that's what gets me excited here, because I think for America to stay competitive and keep evolving, the information share and the trickle down has to be, paramount for that to happen, for kids to get the current knowledge to continue their development path.
Excellent. Adam, let's jump on that a little bit too. Your experience as a professional, what are the things that you really want to talk about and teach that maybe you're seeing are deficient in the American game, or maybe deficient in the game for 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds in general?
For me, there's probably 2 aspects of that. I think helping develop these young guys and sort of help share some of the lessons that I've learned outside of rugby in life is probably something that interests me. And I would be keen to sort of help the guys develop as people, and I think rugby's a great tool for that. I think a lot of good people come out of rugby and there's a reason for it. I think there's probably values in rugby that have been instilled over the last however many years that are, they're pretty entrenched in the sport. So there's that side, but technical aspect, I'd probably like to say that I'm somebody who, as a forward, I have a reasonably good understanding of the game. So if I can help get other forwards up to that point where they're comfortable to, play the ball, put themselves in at first receiver, and especially in defence as well, be able to really be confident to make reads and make decisions on the field, and that again, it just comes through repetition, and it comes through small little things you can look out for when you're in training or in a game. But all that kind of stuff really just trying to develop the players as much as possible, because there's no doubt about it. The thing that excites me is there's a lot of really, really talented athletes, and I think there's a lot of people starting to be attracted to the sport over here, and it excites me, the proposition of seeing how powerful American rugby can be. I don't think anybody knows how powerful that they might be, but I think there's just the sky is the limit. So yeah, probably that.
So David, you talk about that, and you were talking about two guys who are not that long removed. Well, Corbs is not that long removed from the highest level, and Adam's still right in the middle of it. So you've got guys who are talking about the modern way of playing, not a way. You don't have a coach who last played 20 years ago or something like that, and that kind of speaks to the way you're taking direction you're taking UCLA rugby in general, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we want to be at the cutting edge of what's going on. We have to. I mean, it's tough. We work with whatever players we have. Admissions is tough for us, but I mean, we've got great facilities. We've got, great support from our university and our alumni. So we might as well put the very best coaching we can at the forefront of the way the game is going around these players to give them the best chance of being as competitive as possible. So I think another side piece as well is like just having really young, relatable coaches as well who are really engaging with them is something that's a big part of my coaching philosophy, which is like to involve players so that they learn. And I think having the guys who are very actively involved in rugby still coaching and playing, and being on the younger side like myself, I think we're very approachable and very engaging with the players. And I think our UCLA guys respond to that really well. They're highly intelligent individuals who, if you involve them, they understand the why of the coaching, they learn. They're not so receptive to just receiving information because you tell them and then they go do it. They're smarter than that, and that should be a point of difference for our side. So having these two guys would be brilliant.
One of the other things for me, always talking about the game and the attractions of the game. It's a global game. Also, people often say, I used to say it a lot, you can go anywhere in the world, show your rugby boots, you could have a place to crash for the night. You could have a game. You could get a game, whether it's at the highest professional or someone like me. And Adam and Alex, talk a little bit about it. You guys have been all over the world, and here you are in Southern California, but you've been all over the world and had some amazing experiences in rugby. How important is that for you to communicate that to young rugby players and what they can do with their lives as a result?
Rugby, I've been very fortunate to be in the position where rugby has taken me all over the world, and it gives you the opportunity to learn from different cultures, different people. There's so many different ways of skinning the cat and living life. So I think that's it's been invaluable getting to go out and see different places in the world. So yeah, I think if there's one thing that we can sort of maybe inspire the guy to do is that you can push on and get to that next level, and rugby can be a fantastic vehicle for you to get out into the world and experience everything that the world's got to offer.
The only things I would add is I think that it's experiencing new cultures, but also the common values of rugby. And really, I've privileged to have rugby in my life from a young age, and the values that help shape me, how I conduct with people, relationships, discipline, respect, trust, honor, all the core values of it. That I think it's really important that we keep instilling that in the game over here. And those are really the pillars that will allow players to go around the world and have these shared experiences of a pickup game on a summer break vacation or somewhere, like is because we share these common values and that brotherhood of rugby, and it's what pumps through my veins, and it's part of the reason why even though I've moved away from the sport and more into an analyst role, I need to be close to it in other ways, because I love the values of rugby. I love the way it can help shape and change people and be a vehicle for change in their lives, and just be a vehicle for growth as well. And I think the fact that we have an opportunity to help shape these lads, to instill these values, to, share our experiences and, broaden their horizons to different cultures and the way rugby's done elsewhere as well is massive. And then lastly, probably the factor of what I love the most about America is culturally in rugby, in America, rugby is a melting pot sport. It is really, very diversified, the ranges of where people come from whether it be, inner city to rural, southern, northeastern, you get people from all walks of life. Where I come from, where I grew up, rugby in England, it's a lot more of not an elitist sport. It's moved a lot away from that, but it's a lot more, everyone's very similar to you. You've mainly still played it private schools together. Now you're in the academy together. Now you're in England. And then eventually you meet, you know, people that have come from, you know, Polynesian, from South Africa, New Zealand, that have come into your life, but it's quite, you know, contained. But rugby in America here is so diverse. And I think it's really a point of difference for it in America, and something we should celebrate. And to be able to, you know, to reinforce that into a group and to send guys out into a world that have that melting pot background is only going to better the sport long term, as well as they travel around the world and keep sharing and growing rugby and its values at the same time.
Very nice. All right, excellent. David, when you've got these two part of your coaching staff now, and you talk about, you know, it's difficult to get into UCLA, right? It's getting more and more difficult to get into schools like that, and people are bribing their way. Ooh, I shouldn't say that. But if you're going to compete with like Cal, right? And you know, or University of Arizona or BYU or things like schools like that, you need the rugby players to look and say, that's a program that I want to be part of, a coaching staff I want to learn from. That's all part of it, right? For you to get the little group of recruiting pool that you're chasing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like it's such a small recruiting pool that we can pull from, because I mean, there's only so many high school seniors in the country playing rugby, right? And then you've got to narrow that down to the top 5% academically. So, you know, for us to have the best, you know, success, we need those 5% wanting UCLA to be their number one. We can't be losing them to a program that they deem potentially a better rugby opportunity experience than UCLA. So that's where I want to be gold standard. Like, I'm not going to come out and say we're the best rugby program in the country, but I want it to be an opportunity where, as a rugby player, irrespective of your ability coming in, you've got the most growth opportunity over the course of 4 years, like an academy. Whether you come in and you're like, I played high school football, I want to play prop and rugby, I want to put the tools in place to maximize your growth, even at a very late training age and entry to the sport, that maybe you do play MLR after 4 years, you know, because of your athleticism. Or you come in, you've been playing rugby all your life, but we don't have, you know, the admissions help to be able to be picky on who we recruit with. So we need the best tools around being coaches to develop every specialist area and have every minute on the field be a learning moment for those guys.
And you also have to recruit on campus. Yeah, and again, just say, look, hey, you know, if you're a serious guy and you want to be serious about a sport that you're learning, maybe, this is a serious program.
Totally. I mean, look at when I came in, I was at the dentist store. I flew into LA the Friday before it. I mean, I saw the scrum against Cal in that game. And I mean, I rang Alex probably the next week and said, I need to get you up here. So, you know, but at the same time, I mean, we've got guys like Sean Seawards, who came across from 2 years on the football team. You know, he's big guy, ready, born tight head. And the growth that he had under Alex in the course of about 5 weeks before COVID shut us down was just phenomenal. I mean, he was starting to track towards a USID camp with the Eagles. Like we were making serious inroads with him, and I think we'll have a lot more success transferring guys who try and walk onto the football team or drop off the football team. But the level of professionalism in the environment can't be a severe cliff drop for them. It's got to be an easy slide from Chip Kelly's program across to our program, where there's professionalism in our analysis, our coaching staff, our strength and conditioning. It can't be too much of a drop off for them. And we offer them something, hopefully, where here's an alternative. Here's a sport not dissimilar to yours, where your attributes are complemented in this sport. But here's an avenue where you can still go professional, or you can still have a really great college experience playing a sport and being rugby. So, you know, tight 5 recruits is an even smaller bucket for us, right? So to recruit from. So we've obviously had a very strong backline, probably UCLA's entire history. UCLA's strongest moments in like the 60s, 70s was when they were bringing football guys across. And that's the recipe for success. I mean, talking to Jack, my first game against him, that's what he was saying. Like when UCLA had some football guys in the type 5, they could beat anyone, right? They were going over to Loughborough and beating them. So if we can get back to a little bit of that, you know, knowing where we came from to know where we're going and what worked in the past, like there's a lot to that. And if we brought in a few football guys and train them up in the front row with Alex, I think we could be really something to work with.
So your program not only has to impress the students, though, you might have to impress other coaches on campus.
Yeah.
Right.
100%. Yeah.
So that,
I mean, I was very,
right?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I mean, through some Golden Eagle events and then some Sevens fundraisers that we were at, I got to meet with Chip Kelly a couple of times before the pandemic hit, and he's a rugby fan, so he's had his defensive coordinator himself and others have all brought in rugby expertise over the course of their career to date. So I think there's a ready-made opportunity there. And, you know, the amount of players that are going to be on football rosters next year and the amount of attempted walk-ons, etc. Like, I think there's a golden opportunity for us to get vouched for by potentially our football coach, which would be not something that's very common in a collegiate rugby program. So it's something we're aspiring towards, and hopefully we can further continue that relationship. And I mean, who knows? I mean, like, so many rugby programs that are forward thinking, like Dobson or Pete Carroll, etc., are bringing rugby guys. I mean, maybe Adam Ashe goes in and does a defensive session or tackle tech session with the football guys, you know, like, who knows? But I mean, if those two entities start working together, then the sky's the limit.
Speaking of COVID, what's the prognosis on you guys actually being able to play this spring?
Yeah, we got some level of optimism after Governor Newsom's latest update to the guidelines in this last week or so. So it looks like there's going to be some provisions for opening of outdoor spaces in universities. There's a very specific amount of cases per 100,000 people before contact sports like football and rugby are allowed to come back again. So we've got something to work towards now. And I think more importantly, my concern was going to be, do we have enough practice time to lead into playing physically in a game and put them at, you know, the least risk of injury? And, you know, we put that at like anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks before we play a competitive game. So if the state and city guidelines allow for us now to start practicing in the next couple of weeks, which it looks like they might, and the campus is raring to go, and we've got our return to play protocols submitted, and we should be able to practice sometime in March, all going well. So, you know, still waiting for confirmation on any of that kind of stuff. It's all speculative at this point. Like, those guidelines just got released, but I think it's moving in the right direction towards being feasible.
Very good. Have you guys worked together yet? I mean, actually in the same space, or is it mostly?
No, I mean, Alex came on board with us for about 6 to 8 weeks, I think, with my first season. So he's been involved with the team, and you know, he was doing video work, one-on-ones, individuals, and then he was involved in our Tuesday night sessions as well. Adam, we only confirmed, I mean, not too long ago, but Adam's come on and done an introduction meet and greet session with the guys. He's built out some line-out stuff with Alex and our captain, Paddy Regan. And we're working on some other stuff now with him as well. So obviously the boys are out in Hawaii right now with the Giltinis, but back in LA sometime in March. So hopefully it'll coincide with our return to training and we can all be in the same room for the first time, which would be great. But I mean, I've known Alex for a while. Like, we met in New York probably 4 or 5 years ago, and we've touched base, crossed paths. I mean, I coached a bit with Abby, and we met at other rugby stuff, fundraisers. You know how it is in USA Rugby. But with Adam, one of the things, like, selfishly for me as well, like, obviously I learned huge amounts from Alex and from his experience and who he's been coached by, but also an area of the game that I'm the weakest at. Like, I was a fullback, right? So, yeah. But with Adam, like, some of the guys that I really look up to as coaches are like Scott Robertson, Gregor Townsend, Dave Rennie, both for like the style of play that they play, but also their culture building within teams. And I think that's so important. And when I heard that Adam was coming over to LA and he'd been coached by Scott Robertson when he was 20 down in New Zealand, he'd been coached by Gregor Townsend, he'd been coached by Dave Rennie. It's like 3 of my top 4 coaches. So selfishly, as like, I need to put myself around this guy to understand what was going on in some of those cultures, you know, and pick his brain and how they operated from a player perspective. So I think he'll bring all that kind of stuff as well.
Adam, are you like direct messaging some of your former coaches and saying, what do I do?
I keep in touch with all those guys, to be honest. Like, I think all have played, like, I guess coming through at Glasgow, like, club played a big part in my life and sort of my evolution as a person. So coming out here, like, Gregor text to say, you know, like, you know, congratulations, you know, hope you enjoy it, and I'm sure it'll be a great experience and that type of thing. I was texting Scott Robertson a little bit a couple of months ago, just because we've kind of got, I don't speak to him all that often, but we've got a mutual friend in New Zealand, and she was doing a bit of traveling and ended up getting in touch and needed to get something from me, and it was just one of those things. But these guys are all phenomenal operators. You know, they've got a massive amount of experience in the game, and I think being able to learn from them and hopefully implement some of the things that they've done to create these successful environments and cultures is, if I'm able to do that, then, you know, that's great. So yeah, culture is something I'm really interested in.
Circle it all the way back around, maybe to sevens. Alex, you may be the stealth sevens coach because you have access to more sevens expertise than possibly anyone with Abby. So, do you actually secretly know lots about sevens?
I've learned a lot. I'm going to say, obviously, Abby is. I wouldn't say Abby would be the first to dismiss me of trying to take any credit of expertise because she loves to say I know nothing about it. Like, obviously with NBC, we've done the sevens in LA. We've done we did the World Cup sevens. So I've had a fair bit calling it and objectively looking at it. But then, since being with Abby, I've learned so much more detail, the intricacies of sevens. I know Dave is very tuned in, and, there's nothing stopping, as a 7 seasons, Abby being able to be a source of information in this partnership for the 7 seasons as well, because her knowledge is going to directly be, top level, what's going on at the highest level behind the scenes, and drip feeding that into our program, I think will only benefit us. And, it'd probably do a disservice if I just recited what she told me. So it wouldn't surprise me, especially with now how prevalent Zoom and everything as well, that we get some, Abby Gastitis Zooms going in during the 7th season.
Fantastic. All right. Perfect. Well, Adam, Alex, and David, I think that kind of wraps it up. That's great for me. Well, David, I'll perhaps leave it the last thing to you. If there's anything you needed to a shout out to anybody.
2 things really. One, it's great to have these guys joining what's already a great team that I inherited with, Wes Schwartz and Bill Kingdom, who run our coaching staff before these guys came in, as well as our athletic trainers and all the people from the department that make the rugby team tick. But I mean, mainly this is possible due to the resurgence of our alumni association and some really influential alumni over the years who were top rugby players in their own right, coming back together and rallying around a cause to make, bring UCLA Rugby right up to the top flight of college rugby again. So a huge thank you to those guys to make, this opportunity possible for myself, but also to be able to bring in guys like Alex and Adam and move this program back to where we believe it should be.
All right, perfect. Well, guys, thank you very much. That's perfect. Gives me a lot.
Thanks.
So I appreciate it.